Since the inception of the SOLIDWORKS student license, getting your hands on one has been a surprisingly complicated process. And while they were heavily discounted for students, they weren't free. And I remember just how expensive $80 felt when I was in college on the instant ramen diet. As of July 2026, though, those days are over, as SOLIDWORKS has made a huge announcement that it's now free for students and instructors. This means whether you're a middle school student or a PhD candidate or anywhere in between, or an educator at any of these institutions, you can now get access to a full, genuine desktop version of SOLIDWORKS for exactly $0. Now, I can already feel the questions flying at me through the screen, so stick around to find out if you qualify, what's included, how to get it, the limitations of this version, and what to do if you're not a student. Now, I'm going to do my best to keep this video short, but if you have a specific question or if you want to jump straight to the download instructions, consider using the timestamps shown here to skip between sections as needed. First and foremost, though, I don't want to waste your time, so let's run through a quick 2-minute summary so you can see if this version is right for you. If you're designing products to sell, doing freelance work, starting your own business, or if you're planning on collaborating with commercial companies, this version is not right for you. Let's just get that out of the way right now. However, if you're learning CAD or taking engineering classes or working on STEM projects like FIRST Robotics or Formula SAE, or even if you just happen to be a student and want to mess around with CAD for fun and 3D print some stuff, this is absolutely the version for you. You can send and receive files from classmates or professors, create designs to start building out your professional portfolio, and learn everything you could possibly need to become a certified SOLIDWORKS expert. So what's the catch? Surprisingly, there really isn't one in the traditional sense, and other companies have already started offering free basic versions of their CAD programs for personal use. Autodesk has already done this with Fusion 360, and the only real limitation of the student version for SOLIDWORKS revolves around watermarking files, but that doesn't prevent you from learning the software or even publishing files for 3D printing. Ultimately, SOLIDWORKS is just lowering the barrier to entry like several of its competitors. I should also reiterate that yes, this is the full desktop version of SOLIDWORKS that we're talking about here. There's a lot of other browser-based tools that often get confused with SOLIDWORKS, but this is in fact the real deal that everyone is interested in. Now, if you're still here after all that, let's get into the details of getting access and the more specific requirements for students and instructors. Since this is a relatively new development, if you go to the SOLIDWORKS.com homepage, you'll see a big banner about SOLIDWORKS for students, and you can click on the Learn More button to get started. Or, since this banner will likely be gone in a month or two, you can hover over the Buy drop-down in the top menu, then click Students in the left column. Or, let's be real, we can all Google SOLIDWORKS free for students and click the first link that shows up. You'll then see a button that says Get Started or Get SOLIDWORKS for free, depending on which page you land on. Clicking this will take you to an information page where you'll need to fill out information including your email, school or university name, country, education level, and field of study. And I'd like to point out here that you do not need a .edu email address for this to work, which is huge because it can sometimes be difficult to get an edu email address even if you're an enrolled student. Next, we've got a few checkboxes to mark off, starting with number 1, you've read all the terms and conditions and the privacy policy. Number 2, you're a qualified student or instructor. This means that yes, you do have to be actively enrolled in or employed by a formal educational institution to get SOLIDWORKS for free. Number 3, this version of SOLIDWORKS is for educational use only, so if you dream of designing and selling the next fidget spinner, you'll need to buy a commercial license. Basically, you can't sell anything you design here. And number 4, you've got to be at least 18 years old or 13 if mom and dad say it's cool. Clicking Next will take you to the download page, and it will also display your serial number, which I've blurred out here, but you'll want to copy this down or make sure it's accessible because you'll need it during installation. From here, click Download, and an installer file should be ready to go for you in just a few seconds. Once you've successfully downloaded, you should also receive a welcome email from SOLIDWORKS at the email address you provided, and this will contain a copy of your serial number along with links to frequently asked questions, an installation guide, and some online training resources to get you started. Or you can always use Solid Professor's Beginner to Certification course. Now, I'm not going to cover the installation process here since the guide is included, and there's about 1,000 tutorials available online, including here at Solid Professor, that'll walk you through it. So next, let's talk about what's included in this version. Again, this is a genuine Windows desktop version of SOLIDWORKS, and all the footage in this video is from the student version. So set aside any preconceived notions of browser-based CAD or cloud-only access. This is actual SOLIDWORKS. All that being said, it's also the most basic version of SOLIDWORKS that's available, meaning it doesn't include the advanced full-service add-ins like simulation, electrical, CAM, etc. If you're new to CAD or you just want something to mess around with, though, you probably won't even notice these limitations. You still get the big three CAD capabilities, which are parts, assemblies, and drawings, along with several other more industry-specific tools like surface modeling, sheet metal, weldments, etc. This version even includes mold tools and mesh modeling, which are pretty advanced as far as design work goes, and beyond that, several Express products are also available in this edition. And these are essentially lightweight versions of add-ins for strength simulation or FEA, flow sim or CFD, design for manufacturing, otherwise known as DFM, and even design automation with DriveWorks. Altogether, these tools are way more than enough for most designers, and they'll help you develop the fundamentals before getting into the more specialized modules. With this version, you can learn how to create simple mechanical components, large assemblies, complex surfaces with organic geometry, mold tooling, designs for shop fabrication, or whatever it is you're interested in building. If you're a hobbyist, you can use this version to save and share STL files of your designs, which is perfect for 3D printing. You can test the motion of parts and assemblies, take measurements, check for interferences, and use all sorts of other design evaluation tools and the Express products that are included. This is a complete package that functions nearly identically to the commercial version of SOLIDWORKS. Now, if you find that SOLIDWORKS for Students isn't going to work for you for whatever reason, there's probably another version available to you that'll get the job done. If you need access to the fully featured versions of those specialized tools we mentioned a moment ago, like the full add-in for simulation, CAM, electrical, etc., there's another student version available, but as you may have guessed, it's not free, but it is very heavily discounted. If you're up for paying $60 a month, you can get a student version of SOLIDWORKS Premium, which adds in all those specialized tools so you can get some experience with them, and it also comes with certification vouchers so you can take some SOLIDWORKS exams and prove you know what you're doing. And certifications look great on resumes, by the way. It's also worth noting that these student licenses are meant for individual students or individual instructors and not classrooms. So if you happen to be here looking to build out a CAD program at your institution, you'll want to look into the Education edition of SOLIDWORKS, which is meant specifically for classroom environments. This version provides access to expanded tools, additional curriculum resources, home licenses for students, and tons of other material for establishing an educational CAD program. Now, if you're not a student, you still have options, the most popular of which is the SOLIDWORKS for Makers program, which allows hobbyists to get access to the software regardless of student status. The price tag tends to fluctuate with regular promotions and sales, but as of July 2026, it's priced at $48 a year, currently on sale for $24 a year. So it's pretty inexpensive, and it does include a ton of functionality, but it's not quite the same as the student version of SOLIDWORKS Premium, and it includes a lot more 3D experience tools, which can be a pro or a con depending on who you ask. Either way, though, definitely check it out if you're not a student. Now, by this point, I'm sure you're asking what SOLIDWORKS for Students can't do, and that's a great question with a few different answers. So let's start off with one of the most common questions we get about the student version, which is, can I make money with it? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. Student versions are for educational purposes only, so you cannot make money with them. You can use this version to develop classroom materials if you're an instructor, but if you're looking to make some cold hard cash by selling your 3D prints at the local farmer's market, you'll want the Makers version, which allows for up to $2,000 a year in revenue. Any more than that, and you'll want to look into getting a legitimate commercial license. Question number 2, what are the limitations of files saved in the student edition? The only real limitation you'll notice in the student edition is the watermarks that appear in the files you create. These are fairly subtle, and at the part level, they're indicated by a graduation cap icon in the feature tree. At the drawing level, you likely won't notice anything different until you print it out or save it as a PDF, at which point you'll discover a large watermark in the bottom left corner, indicating that it's for instructional use only. Outside of this, everything is basically the same as commercial SOLIDWORKS. Question number 3, can I open student edition files with a commercial license? Yes, you can, and you can also do the opposite and open commercial files with the student edition, but it won't solve any problems for you, and it'll likely create more headache than it's worth. You can't get rid of the watermarks by opening student files with a commercial license, and they'll cause any assemblies or drawings they're included in to be watermarked as well. Remember, just because you can doesn't mean you should. It's best to keep these environments completely separate if at all possible. Question number 4, how do I get rid of the watermarks? If you can't stand the watermarks, you can always export to a neutral format like STEP or IGES or STL, but just be aware that you'll lose your feature tree and your design intent if you do this. So you can technically get around the watermarks, but you lose a lot of functionality. Outside of that, though, you're pretty much stuck with the watermark, so don't design anything in the student version that you think might become a real commercial opportunity. And finally, question 5, what if I get stuck? As I mentioned before, the free student edition is 99.9% the same as the commercial version with a few key limitations and differences. So with that in mind, any questions you have about installation, system requirements, troubleshooting, etc. should all be answered in the online SOLIDWORKS help files and other available documentation. This also applies to learning the software itself and best practices for designing. There's built-in tutorials inside of SOLIDWORKS that you can find by clicking on the little question mark icon in the top right of the interface, and these are a great place to start. Beyond that, YouTube can be a pretty good resource, and searching for beginner SOLIDWORKS tutorials will give you plenty of good results. SOLIDWORKS themselves also recently announced a new practice problem database where you can find over 300 exercises in PDF format to practice your skills or keep on hand to use in the classroom as an instructor. All that being said, if you're really serious about becoming a master of SOLIDWORKS, the number one best place to learn for beginners and experts alike is right here at Solid Professor. If you're a new SOLIDWORKS user, be sure to check out our SOLIDWORKS Beginner to Certification course, which features self-paced lessons, guided exercises, and practice exams modeled after genuine SOLIDWORKS certifications. And if you're an instructor, check out our Solid Professor for Schools program to learn more about how we partner with schools all over the country to get students certified. Now, before we go, I'd like to offer a quick comparison of the different versions of SOLIDWORKS we've discussed here so you can see them side by side and determine which is the best for you. Consider pausing here for a closer look, and last but not least, be sure to check back here in the coming weeks to keep up with the latest developments in the software and discover more about the upcoming 2027 version. Until next time, thanks for watching What's New in SOLIDWORKS.